Hello, my name is Lucas. This is A Bit of Lit, and I want to talk to you about A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, 1492 to the present. This edition came out in 2003, so it has additional chapters covering the Reagan, Bush, Clinton, and both Bush presidential administrations, at least the beginning of the first few years of George W. Bush's administration. And this is a horrifying book. I had to read it over a long period of time. It's quite long as well, which you would imagine for a book that begins its time period hundreds of years ago. I think it's fantastic, personally. I do have a major gripe with it and some minor ones. I'll tell you the major one. If you've read it and you also have some issues with it, you can let me know. But before I tell you my problem with the book, it's just a small one, and I actually think it's not that bad in certain aspects, but we'll get to that. It is a history of America as a colony, as a nation, as an empire. And it begins with Christopher Columbus's complete and utter abject, is that the right word? Abject? Brutality when he arrived in the New World. And the brutality does not end there. It continues on through colonial America, and you see it in the way that people are treated. Because this book is a people's history, and he makes no bones about it. He wants you to know that he is not even trying to be unbiased, because, as he says, I think in the afterword, that there are so many history books that cover the great man, so to speak, or cover history in a way to make an era seem different than it actually is, or leaves out so many facts, because those are the ones that are determined to be important. And for example, the founding fathers are great men during the Revolutionary War era. Lincoln ending slavery during the Civil War era. FDR for the Great Depression and World War II. And Lyndon B. Johnson for the Civil Rights Movement, I suppose, as well. And Carter for the Ford and Nixon, Watergate, Republican, Vietnam War, even though Carter was actually in favor of the war era. He's a response to that, and he's seen as a great man to counter that horrible time. His argument is that so many history books had that bent. So he wants to show the people, which he can't do a perfect job of, because he's just one man, and he's got his own bias and this kind of thing. But in that respect, I would greatly appreciate this book. Certainly there's nothing new in here, maybe a few events here and there, but this book is really great at putting everything into context in terms of how people have been affected by and responded to different policies throughout America as a colony's time, and as a country, and as an empire. It gets particularly hard to read. Well, the beginning is very difficult to read, and it continues to be hard to read. And, once you get to the 1980s, oh no, not 1980s, the 1890s, sorry, just before the turn of the century, we got President McKinley and President Theodore Roosevelt, and these people really, and who else? Well, anyway, that era of America finally, declaring war on Spain and the Philippines and these places and becoming an empire, truly, it goes from being horrifying to what the political elite, the economic elite are doing to immigrants and their own people and citizens, and throughout time to natives. Even to that time, they were brutalizing natives. Slavery up until 30-ish years before that, when it ended in the 1860s. I mean, it's just horrifying, the things that you see and how people are treated and what's done to them. And then it's spread around the world. And it's just like you're driving down a highway going 80 miles per hour with half your body hanging out the window, and you're just trying to hold on and steer for dear life. It's again, for me, not particularly anything new, except maybe a few different events that are just additional to all the other things that I did know, and it's just so hard to anyway, I don't want to make you think that it's a bad book. I think it's a great book, but my main issue with this book, which is sort of a good thing in some respects, he is not trying to play games with you to make you think he's unbiased by any means. He certainly is quite biased. And like I said, he lets you know that historians and the news and whoever else, they have their own bias because whatever facts they pick and how they present them, that says something about their bias. But my issue here is that he points to a lot of other historians' books and shows like quite long portions of their books, which I think is okay. I suppose. However, it does make me... There's another issue with that, in that he will often... there will be a long paragraph, and let's say the first sentence, you see most of it, I think most of it, and then there will be an ellipsis somewhere in the middle, and then after the ellipsis, after the 3 dots, you will see one word that gives you an impression of what this person was saying. If it's a direct quote. Don't get me wrong, he does use primary sources as well and point to those, whether it's like a presidential interview or some letter that some congressman wrote, or like Alexander Hamilton wrote, or whoever, some secretary wrote. There are also primary sources, but sometimes it does feel like he's taking a lot of liberties with what he's quoting and how much he's quoting, and I do feel that it does diminish in some respects the arguments he's trying to make about the true nature of America's history. That said, at the same time, if he's pointing to a book that somebody wrote about a time period, say the progressive movement or the labor movement in the early 1900s, and he's quoting some person's book about this, if you are interested in reading more, now you know the name of a book, and you didn't have to go to the bibliography to try and parse through what's in there. So in a way, it's he's giving you a list direct of books that you can continue to read if you are interested in the subject. So I think in some ways it's a benefit. Of course, you could just have those in the bibliography, but also I do feel like it's a bit complicated in that sense. I'm no historian, but I do feel like it does diminish his point in some way. Still, quite compelling. There are some other minor quibbles to make with it, but that's my main one. In a way, it does I don't know if I said this already, and it does sort of feel like the only real history book ever written about America, but, it's quite biased, but, you look at history, you look at the facts as they are presented to you, and you have to start questioning yourself and questioning what you know. And if nothing else, that's what is great about this book. It really makes you question everything you have ever learned. There's so many times where I learned the origin of sort of how an idea about a certain period is, I don't want to say marketed, but how it's presented at least, and who that came from and why they came up with that idea. And it has largely to do with how they were trying to control the population, and temper the anger and reroute it to something else, so that the political and economic elite could stay in their positions of power, that kind of thing. Anyway, if for no other reason, it's a great book just to question everything you know about America, or to show exactly what you know about America, depending on what your viewpoint, I suppose. Thank you. Goodbye.